Now, a few minutes on the term Vedic civilization. It's part of the purport. Prabhupada talks about Vedic civilization. How do we define Vedic civilization? Does Vedic civilization exist today? Is preaching on YouTube and on Facebook, can we say that that's Vedic civilization? What is the criteria? It's important for us to think about this, because if we boast or if we claim that there was a Vedic civilization that has existed since the beginning of creation, so that technically means 155 trillion years. It's a lot longer than 100,000, as most archaeologists say. And if we claim all the things that we claim based around this idea of Vedic civilization, it'd behoove us to define it properly. Especially now that that Krishna consciousness is spreading all over the world again, and we're seeing a sort of a renouveau of at least Vaishnavism all over the world, as the Bhagavatam claims existed thousands and millions of years ago. What's the criteria? What's the criteria? We can define yugas very precisely. Like, we can actually get to the nitty-gritty and say, okay, look, because of astronomical calculations, yesterday was Treta Yuga and today is Kali Yuga or Dwapara Yuga, right? Because right, the calculations are very, so you can actually theoretically conceive of a day, which is like, it's like the last day of Dwapara Yuga plus one, and then you're in the next Yuga. But is this the same thing with Vedic civilization? Was there a period in time when you said, oh, well, sorry, yesterday we were in Vedic civilization, today no more? No. So some of us have this idea that Vedic civilization is a static concept, and often a concept that is taken in the far past. And like, you go in a time machine, you go back 5,000 years ago, you take a snapshot with your iPhone, you move back to 2016 and you print that and you say that's Vedic culture or that's Vedic civilization. And whatever technology is not in there, whatever architecture is not in there, whatever food recipe is not in there, whatever language is not in there, it may not make the team of what is considered to be Vedic civilization. Since I mentioned language, listen to the following quote by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And this refers to, for example, how when Narottam Das Thakur wrote in vernacular Bengali, songs that express the full-on purports of the Bhagavatam. As Prabhupada says, the songs of Narottam Das Thakur are as good as the Vedic injunctions. So listen to this. This is from Sri Saraswati Sanlap. Bhaktisiddhanta says, language is just a dress. The purport or intention of the text is its body. If someone describes the Supreme Lord by wearing the language dress of 20th century civilization, or if Vedic mantras are written with the paper, pen, and ink, or we could say with the internet, of the 20th century, would we say that they cannot be called Vedic mantras? This type of orthodoxy is born of extremely abominable ignorance. And Prabhupada was totally in line with that. Therefore, he gave his purports in English. Right? Remember, once I asked Sridharana Maharaj, scenario A, you have someone from Saudi Arabia who doesn't speak English or Sanskrit. Scenario A, you read the Bhagavad Gita to him in Sanskrit. Scenario B, you read it in English. Which of the two scenarios gives more spiritual advancement to that person? And I thought his answer was funny. He said, well, doesn't the BBT have an Arabic version of the Bhagavad Gita? A practical way to define what the word Vedic means, for me, we're supposed to speak from experience and from Shastra. So here's Chandrashekhara Acharya Das definition, or the definition that I like to work with to define what is Vedic civilization. And it's right from the Bhagavad Gita, right from the Bhagavatam, right from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and backed up by statements like this from Bhaktisiddhanta, from Prabhupada. What does the word Veda? Okay, Veda means knowledge. What does Krishna say in the Bhagavad Gita about Veda, or Vedas? Someone besides? Yes, but in the 15th chapter, there's a verse. Of all the Vedas, I am to be known. So we can say that knowledge of Krishna, understanding Krishna, is the essence of the Vedas. Krishna says it as much. Now, how do we understand Krishna? How does Krishna say we understand him? Bhaktyamam abhijanati, by devotional service. So bhakti to Krishna, we can safely say, based on Bhagavad Gita, is Vedic. Right? So now, whether you look 500 million years ago, 5,000 years ago, today, or in 500 years, or whether you're looking at West Bengal, or Peru, or Sweden, or Tamil Nadu, whether something is engaged, or someone is engaged in Krishna's service, or not, very easily distinguishes whether you can call it Vedic or not. It's practical. The second canto, chapter 9 of Bhagavatam, Lord Krishna tells Brahma, my dear Brahma, whatever you see in reality that is not in relationship with me, know it to be what? My illusory energy. And Lord Chaitanya echoes that in the Antya Lila of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where he says, anything not conceived in relationship to Krishna should be understood to be illusion. Conversely, so that means, like, for example, you can go back to that snapshot, and if what's going on in that snapshot is not Krishna Bhakti, then using this definition, I'm not saying there's other definitions, but using that definition, it's not Vedic. Interestingly, I find this fascinating, that Krishna himself, when he says yoga nashta in the Bhagavad Gita, when and in what context is he saying that? He's saying that in the context of the Mahabharata, where externally there seems to be, the perfect snapshot of Vedic civilization. And yet, Krishna, God, says the connection has been lost. And also, rise above the flowery words of the Vedas. So in that sense, there's no bhakti, it's not Vedic. And conversely, then the flip side of the coin is that if there is bhakti, then that civilization, by definition, whether 500 million years ago, 5,000 years ago, whether today or whether in 500 years, can be included in the definition of what Vedic means. This, my friends, my masters, is exactly what Rupa Goswami talks about in his definition of Yukta Vairagya. When one is not attached to anything, but at the same time accepts everything in relationship to Krishna, one is rightly situated above possessiveness. On the other hand, one who rejects everything without knowledge of its relationship to Krishna is not as complete in his renunciation. Prabhupada says in 72, we don't neglect this material world as false. This is pseudo-renunciation. In 75, we don't give up anything. Everything is Krishna's energy. Therefore, it has got some relationship with him. When we utilize Krishna's energy for Krishna, that is bhakti. When we utilize Krishna's energy for our sense gratification, that is called demonism. Therefore, to answer the question, is the technology of today, such as social media, is it non-Vedic? Certainly when it's pornography, when it has nothing to do with Krishna, when it has to do with Ugra Karma, certainly. When it's engaged in Krishna's service, can we say it's Vedic? Can we say it's part of an organic, ever-living Vedic civilization? Well, according to this definition, among many granted, it certainly can be called. So here's a few words on the concept of Vedic civilization. And I think it's helpful for us, we're giving our lives and with gratitude, not that, oh, we're doing a great sacrifice, we should be rewarded so well. No, it's a privilege. We pray to Tulsi Devi, it's a privilege to engage in devotional service. So to be part of the Sankirtan mission, of the preaching mission of Lord Chaitanya is a great privilege. And for us, and for all of us, because we're all part of the Sankirtan movement, broadening a little bit the concept of what Vedic civilization means from a sort of a static, fixed in time and fixed in history and fixed in geographical area kind of definition, to a more of a Shastric-based, universal, organic, ever alive, as we speak now concept, I believe can facilitate the spreading of Krishna consciousness, the fulfillment of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's prediction of every town and village. So, thank you very much. Are there any reflections, questions, or stories? Oh.
Regarding the definition of Vedic, what about demigod worshippers? They may not be interested in Krishna, but they follow so many external forms of quote-unquote Vedic culture. How would you categorize?
How do we categorize demigod worship? Well, isn't there a conversation where Prabhupada was asked? I think Guru Gargamuni Prabhu tells the story of how he asked, what is better, Christians or demigod worshippers? And in that instance, at least Prabhupada said, well, demigod worshippers, because it gives them a chance to evolve. My understanding is that even in hardcore materialistic type of demigod worship, the name of Vishnu is still mentioned, and so indirectly there's still an acknowledgement that Vishnu is at the helm of the yajna and is the ultimate beneficiary of the sacrifice, even though they completely disregard. It's amazing human psychology. You could have things staring you right in the face and still not. I can remember there was this group of Mayavadi sannyasis who came out of Delta Airlines once when I was at the airport. There were like 5 or 6 came out with their full, very saffron robes and the Mayavadis. and so they walked, and so I was like, okay, I'm going to sing to them, Bhaja Govinda, Muramate. So I started singing to them, hey, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda. And you'd think that they would react and say, oh, actually, you're right. We should worship Govinda. No, they sang along with me. Oh, Bhaja Govinda, Muramate. Oh, very good, very good. But they're still going to be Mayavadis, So my understanding is that there's this gradual elevation when Vishnu and Vishnu's name at least is mentioned. Anyone wants to add on to that?